Coming up in today's show, Elky shows us how to use charcoal and wood correctly on the grill. Neal makes quick and easy lamb koftas. We travel to Canada to meet our special guest James Mack, aka Smokin Dad Barbecue. Our dish of the week is grilled sea bream fillets with a borlotti bean stew. And we go on a journey around the barbecue community to take a look at what you've been cooking. Welcome to the Lockdown Barbecue Show. Hello and welcome to the show. We hope you've had a really good week. Thank you ever so much for all your feedback on last week's programme 11. It's great that you really enjoyed the Jess Pryles interview. Now, Elky, how have you been all week?
Yeah, I've been great. Like you said, the weather's been a bit of a mixed bag, but at the weekend, it really sorted itself out. So Friday, the missus went out, so I had the place to myself. I had a lovely steak in the fridge and some langoustines. So I fired up the boy, lovely evening, cooked the steak and the langoustines over fire, couple of beers. It was absolutely beautiful. Then Saturday was a bit of a different story. Had a few friends round. It was a mate's 40th, so there's 5 or 6 of us in the shack. Decided to cook up some dirty burgers, so we were going to have some smash burgers with brisket on top. So I thought I'd document it for Instagram. So I've started the sauce, making the sauce from scratch. I put all the ingredients in, the honey, the chipotle, put the brisket in. It's all looking good. I've ground the meat, and that's pretty much the last video and the last photo I took, because obviously when you've got friends round, when you've got beers flowing, you kind of get a bit waylaid, and that's how it turned out. But no, luckily one of my friends took a picture of one of the burgers. Everyone said they were amazing. So yeah, it was a good weekend. Anyway, what about you? What have you been up to?
I think you had an amazing weekend there, Elky. I did a lot of cooking too. We had a lot of family around last weekend, so I managed to do a lot of cooking on the kettle grill. On the Saturday, I did a really nice chicken and chorizo paella with tiger prawns, which was absolutely lovely. But then on the Sunday, the weather really changed. It rained all day, but I still managed to do a roast chicken on the barbecue, and also I did some garlic potatoes and some parsnips, which is absolutely lovely. Now, Elky, you seem to be having a bit of a Delia effect. Lots of photos were posted over the weekend of your chili and lime pork chops.
I think that's the first time I've ever been referred to as Delia, mate, but let's not get carried away. But yeah, no, it's good to see people cooking the dishes from the show. We see the hairy one. He sent in a few photos of where he's made the chili and lime salsa. He's cooked the chops. They look really good. Cragview was another one that sent in his chops. Again, they look fantastic. So really do appreciate you guys when you cook dishes from the show and keep them coming in.
Please definitely keep them coming in. Now it's time for Elky's How To.
In this week's how-to, we're going to take a look at the different fuels available for your barbecue, your smoker, your fire pit. We're also going to look at the different types of wood available to add smoke, to add flavour to your food. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the charcoal briquette. Now these pillow-shaped briquettes are basically formed from sawdust and some binding chemicals to form these rock-hard little bullet pillow-shaped briquettes. Now, you'll commonly use these maybe in a Weber kettle, in a bullet-style smoker. They are consistent. They do produce a nice consistent burn. They produce a fairly long burn. They do also produce a lot of ash. One thing to look out for with these as well is there's a lot of bad ones out there. So if you pick up a bag from a petrol station, for example, that says instant light, you're going to find that they've got some accelerants on there. They've got some sort of lighter fluid, some chemicals that when you burn, yes, it's going to help to get these lit because they are difficult to light otherwise, which is why we use a chimney starter, but I'll come on to that in a second. But be careful, because like I said, there's a lot of nasty ones out here that are just going to give you an acrid taste. They're going to taint your food. Me personally, I don't like using briquettes. I know there are a lot of fans of briquettes. They do produce a consistent heat. They're easy for dialing in your temperature, stabilising your temperature. So yeah, look out for briquettes, but if you are going to use them, make sure you get good quality briquettes. In my experience, Weber briquettes and heat beads were always good for me in the early days when I was using these. So there's your briquettes. And I just touched on the fact that you shouldn't buy any that have got accelerants on there, any lighter fluid, any chemicals. So if you're going to use these, then you're going to want one of these. You put the briquettes into here. This is the chimney starter. Briquettes go in here. You pop a couple of fire lighters under here, and that's going to produce a chimney effect. It's going to get these coals lit a lot quicker than it would you faffing about in a barbecue. It's going to take you ages if you're just trying to stick a couple of fire lighters on these. And please, whatever you do, don't use lighter fluid. Do not do it, because it's just going to smell. It's going to taint your food. It's not going to give you a good experience. And we want you to have a good experience, so you keep coming back and doing it again and again and again. So if you're going to use these, good quality in the chimney starter with a fire lighter, happy days. Next, we're going to come on to my fuel of choice, which is lumpwood charcoal. This is essentially wood, branches, etc. that has been cooked, shall we say, at an extremely high heat with no oxygen. And what you're left with, basically all the moisture has come out of this, or any chemicals have come out of this, and you're just basically left with carbon. And as a result of that, it leaves very little ash, it burns very, very cleanly, and it burns very hot. So this is why I like to use lumpwood. It essentially is fuel for the barbecue in its purest form. Get yourself a good quality lumpwood charcoal supplier. It's no secret that I love Homework Charcoal from London Log Company. Yes, they do sponsor the show, but I've been using Homework Charcoal from them for a good couple of years now. I've been buying it from them regularly, and this stuff, honestly, I've not found anything better than this. This burns really hot, but it burns really, really long, especially if you're using it in a Kamado. This stuff I've had go for 30 plus hours on a single load of charcoal, which is just unreal, because it's really dense. This comes from the trees that grow the acorns that feed the Pata Negra pigs in Spain, so there's an abundance of them. This is a result of keeping those trees trim to promote more growth, better growth, healthier trees. There are some good British suppliers of lumpwood charcoal as well, so do your research, find the good ones, and once you've got it, give it a go. But yeah, this is my fuel of choice, lumpwood charcoal. Next up, obviously, as a fuel, is wood itself. If you're going to use wood, maybe you've got a fire pit or an offset smoker, or you've got a braai. If you're going to be cooking anything over an open fire, then wood is obviously a very good choice. But if you're going to use wood, make sure it's been seasoned for at least 12 months or kiln dried, but you want this stuff as dry as possible. If you use wood that's been freshly cut or only been sat around for a couple of months, it's going to contain a lot of moisture, and all that's going to do, it's going to take a lot longer to get started, to get lit, to get yourself a nice hot fire because of the moisture coming out of it, but it's also going to smoke a lot. So get yourself a good quality seasoned hardwood or kiln dried hardwood for your fire pit, your offset smoker, your braai or whatever. But we'll touch more on this stuff in a few episodes time when we start looking at fire pits and cooking over live fire. If you consider your fuel, your briquettes, your lumpwood as your heat source, we want to add some flavour, and most of the time we do that with smoking, and we do that with different forms of wood, starting from sawdust to chips to wood chunks. Now, like I said, consider your briquettes and your lumpwood as your fuel. These are your flavour, almost like a seasoning on your food. So these are quite an important ingredient in your food if you're going to want to add that flavour of smoke, that taste of smoke, the subtle taste of smoke, I should add, because you don't want to over smoke your food, because I've done that many times when I was first starting out, and it is not a pleasant taste. It tastes of bonfire. So now we're going to take a look at each of these and what you would use in each scenario. So we're going to start off with sawdust, obviously the smallest of the wood, should we say. Now this stuff you would use for cold smoking. So you might have seen I smoke a lot of bacon in the colder months. Now to cold smoke, you would put some of this stuff into a maize type smoker. So it's kind of like you pack it in, you light it at one end, and it slowly, very slowly burn around the maize, producing a smoke but not any heat. So you can do this in the colder months. So you've got your bacon hanging, you've got this packed in, you light it with a tea light or a firelight or whatever you want to do, and then you close the cabinet, the smoking cabinet that you've got the bacon in, and this will just really slowly burn all the way around, usually lasts for about 12 hours, and what you'll come back to is food that's been smoked but hasn't been cooked. So it's perfect for things like bacon, cheese, garlic, nuts. There's many options you could do with cold smoking. So that's sawdust, and that's what we would use that for. So next we're going to take a look at wood chips. Now these, for obvious reasons, you're not going to want to put in for a big smoke. If you're smoking a pork shoulder or a brisket or whatever, you're not going to use these because these are going to burn up very quickly. They're obviously very small, and as soon as they catch, they're going to produce a short burst of smoke and then it's gone. When I was first starting out, I thought wood chips was the only way to go, and I'd read lots of things about soak your wood chips first, and that will make them last longer and you'll get more smoke. But seriously, don't soak your wood chips because it's just going to take longer to ignite and you're going to get the smoke that you don't want off of them. If you're going to be using wood chips, you want to use them for a nice quick smoke. So maybe some fish, maybe a bit of chicken, where you don't want to put a lot of smoke on it. The cook's going to last, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You want to get a short, sharp burst of smoke, burst of flavour on there, and chuck some wood chips on your coals as the fish is cooking away, as the chicken's cooking away, or whatever it is that you just want to get that little bit of flavour on there, and they will do you right. But don't use them for anything where you want to put a strong smoke flavour on over a period of time. So next up, you've got the wood chunks. These are what I use the most of when adding smoke to my food. They're going to work well in the kettle, in a bullet smoker, in a Kamado. And what you do with these essentially is maybe put, depending on the meat, because different meats can take smoke a lot better than others. Brisket, for example, pork shoulder can take a lot of smoke. So you would maybe put 3 or 4 of these into your firebox, and they will give you 4 or 5 hours of smoke and give you that lovely smoky flavour. Lamb, for example, is quite a delicate meat, so you would probably use one of these or even something half the size of this if you wanted to add a bit of smoke onto the lamb, because smoke, in my experience, it can overpower the lamb a little bit. But these are what you're going to use mainly. Again, don't soak them. You do not need to soak them because it's going to take them longer to catch, and it's going to take you longer to stabilise the temperature in your smoker, and it's going to take you longer to get the nice clean smoke you want. If you're going to be cooking with wood chunks, then you want to make sure that you stabilise the temperature and you've got nice clear smoke coming out of the top of your smoker or your barbecue. A mistake many people make, and I made a few times early on, is I was always looking for lots of smoke to come out of the smoker. When I didn't see any smoke, I thought there's going to be no smoke flavour, but it's quite the opposite. If you've got lots of grey smoke or black smoke or very visible smoke coming out the top of your smoker, then it's not ready to smoke on yet. You want your smoke almost invisible, nice wispy smoke. They call it blue smoke, and that's going to be clean smoke, and that's going to be the lovely clean flavours that you're going to get from the wood. I am a big fan of the fruit woods, so cherry, apple. Cherry I use on almost everything. It's my wood chunk of choice. Apple is great on pork. And then you've got the stronger smoking woods such as oak that you might want to use for brisket. So do a little bit of research into what flavour profile you're looking to put on whatever it is you're cooking. But yeah, so there's your wood chunks. Lastly, you've got your planks. This is a cedar plank, and this is probably the only wood that I will soak before cooking, because what we do with these are good for fish, for salmon, for trout, things like that I'd use them for. And you soak it first, and then what we do is I'll put it over the coals just to get a bit of char, just to get a bit of smoke going first. Then we lay our fish on it and move it over to the indirect side, cook it indirect, but because this has got a bit of char and it's caught slightly, it's going to release the smoke, it's going to release the flavour of the wood into that fish. It's very subtle, but it does make a difference. So that's what you would use your planks for. So that was this week's how-to, a quick overview of the different fuels that you will use in your barbecue, your smoker or your fire pit. I hope you found it useful.
Some great top tips there, Elky.
Cheers, Neil. I'd just like to say that is obviously a very quick overview of the different types of fuel available. There are other types of briquettes, for example, like coconut shell briquettes, but if we'd be here all day, we were going through every type of fuel. So very basic overview, and the same with the smoking woods, really. I mean, there's so many different flavour profiles from different types of wood, and again, there's going to be so much information, so we'll probably save that feature for another show.
I think that's going to be a really good feature. Now, Elky, a friend of our show is DJ Barbecue. Have you seen him starring in the new Asda summer commercial?
I did actually, yeah, and fair play to him. I mean, he's a guy that gives so much to the barbecue community. He's always working so hard at it. So yeah, fair play to him, and it's good to see him on the TV.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now it's time for our special guest. Elky, would you like to introduce him?
Yeah, so this guest is somebody that I know from YouTube and Instagram. He's a guy that saw sense and switched from the green things over to Team Red. He's a fellow Commander Joe Fire Squad member. It's James Mack, aka Smokin Dad Barbecue.
James, welcome to the Lockdown Barbecue Show. How are you and your family coping with lockdown in Ontario?
Oh, well, thanks for having us. You know, we're doing really well. You know, we've got each other, so we're really thankful for that and our health. And you know, barbecue obviously makes everything better, but we're missing the social part of it. We get into barbecue because it brought people together, and I can't wait for that part of life to return back to normal.
Just to give the viewers a quick intro into James. James runs Smokin Dad Barbecue on Instagram, on YouTube, doing some absolutely amazing things, smashing out some great food, great content. James, how did Smokin Dad Barbecue come about?
By cooking everything the wrong way early on. And so and Sarah and I got married, we wanted to get into barbecue, learned how bad I was at it, and just said, you know, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to stick with it, have some fun. And just slowly started, you know, practicing, honing craft, going to some shows, meeting some great people online. And then it became a real passion as I met other friends and neighbors who said, you know what, I'm holding back. I'm afraid to get into barbecue, or I don't know if I can turn out, you know, some good food. And it's such a small learning curve once you get into it, but it holds a lot of people back. So that became my mission of, can I help people break that little barrier, real otherwise imperceptible in terms of trying something new and cooking in your backyard for friends and family.
James, when you first got the bug for barbecuing, what was the first equipment you bought?
I had a barbecue that we got when we were married as a wedding present. And I was waiting almost 10 years for that thing to die. And so I'd saved up and I had a new propane grill all set up that's going to go by. Went out and bought it, and a little disappointed the food tasted identical to everything that I cooked on my old one. Now, the hot spots weren't there and there wasn't an inferno of flame coming up through the rusted out, core, but the food was identical. And about a week or two later, we went to a friend's cottage and they had just got a big green egg that summer. And we threw on a frozen chicken breast, and I'd never tasted chicken, let alone a frozen chicken breast, that good before. And so before even coming home, I put my barbecue on Kijiji, which is a local marketplace for selling things you don't want anymore. I had it sold and ordered an egg. I think that was 10, 12 years ago now. So that was the first, sort of real barbecue that I ended up buying, and it's been a learning curve and kind of a growing hobby since then.
And you've obviously evolved quite a bit since then, because you've now moved over to Team Red, haven't you? Talk us through that. Talk us through the decision.
When I first bought in my area, there wasn't a Team Red and a Team Green. It was only Team Green from a distribution, a reseller support. And so when I made the decision, way back when, it was pretty one-sided. Over the last 10 years or so, I've just been following the evolution of cooking, and you start seeing little features that come out, and you're like, oh, I'd kind of really like that, whether it's the airlift hinge, the control tower. I didn't always have this pergola, and so rain getting in my food used to be a real problem, with the daisy wheel style on the big green egg. And then I think it was the slow roller announcement that pushed me over the edge. When that article came out on Engadget, and it was how a Harvard science class changed barbecue, it's like, okay, this is too much. I need to get over the other side. And so I bought my first Kamado Joe over a year and a half or so ago now. And then that's just been something that has taken over the yard, partially voluntarily, partially my loving wife, who helped me make that decision that 5 Kamados in the backyard was a few too many.
You sound like a man after my own heart. I love a gadget. I like the latest and greatest thing to come out. And, if there's something new that you have to have, then, you've got to upgrade, haven't you?
Yeah. It's that little brain bug just sort of took over, right?
Absolutely.
I'm glad I did, though.
I've pointed a lot of people, because you've got a video, haven't you? The big green, why you sold your big green eggs for the Kamado Joes, and I've pointed quite a lot of people towards that. And because I always get asked as well, what should we choose, big green egg, Kamado Joe? And you made a video, and it's a really well put together video, which leads me onto your YouTube channel. How did that come about? Did you start on YouTube first? Did you start on Instagram first?
Yeah, I started on Instagram first, lowest barrier to entry. Let's just take some pictures of food we're cooking and sharing that out. But, as a lot of people have questions, which is, how'd you do that? What was the process? I'm cooking on this. How would I change it? And so it was realizing there was just so many more questions than, even though they say a picture's 1,000 words, it wasn't the 1,000 words people were asking for in terms of how could I do this myself? And so I started YouTube last year just as a way of sharing more behind the scenes, like how do you actually pull this off? And what are some of those things I've learned through messing up a lot of different times early on? And if I can save people the learning curve and just get them knocking out some great food in their backyard, more than happy to pass that on.
More and more people in the barbecue community are getting into making films of their cooks. What sort of video equipment do you use?
So I just use my iPhone, and you're sitting on a tripod today. Many of my users helped make some helpful suggestions for lighting. So we've got some nice lighting to try and fill in things, and a better microphone to make it a little bit easier to hear me. So hopefully you've noticed an improvement on the newest videos where I don't sound quite like I'm in a tin can, but really just started grabbing a phone and throwing it in front of the barbecue and talking to it. And the people watching along in terms of what it is that we're cooking, and hopefully they forgive a little bit of technical mishaps along the way as we figure this all out.
James, how much planning goes into one of your films?
Yeah, I like to, sort of think about the key things and the key seasons when people might be cooking different things, and sharing that. But more importantly, I also just try and think about what are the key messages. If you can only take away, one or two things, what are those things? And I try and, orient the video around, covering two or three key things. It might be charcoal management, might be smoking wood and what you should use for what different flavor, might be a technique like dry brining. But I try and just hit a few things and make it clear that there's only one or two things I'm going to cover each video, rather than a smorgasbord of information, and the follower has to make sense of it all on their own.
James, what are your favorite meats to cook?
Yes. Just kidding. I love cooking all meats, but I think I just love a big bone-in tomahawk. I mean, everything from, you get the nice reverse sear, you can do some smoke, really responds great to dry brining, and it's just a lot of fun to have big bone, throw it on for that sear, and the flames kick up. You can have a lot of fun with it. And so if I had to pick just one, or at least for a short period, maybe we'd do a bone-in tomahawk. A lot of fun.
James, I think you've done a fantastic job on Instagram and YouTube. Have you got any plans to take the brand Smokin Dad Barbecue further?
Yeah, no, right now, just really focus on answering questions. There's so many ideas that we have in store for the summer and the fall, just covering a lot of things that I think people are struggling with to figure out, how do I launch from propane cooking into charcoal cooking? And so that's really been the focus on the summer, is just helping sort of break down some of those barriers. But where we go from the fall and beyond, we'll see.
So James, somebody who's new to barbecuing, this weekend they want to go out and buy their first barbecue. What advice would you give them?
It's a great question. I think, starting with, what do you want to, cook? And it's hard to always answer the question, which one barbecue, should you buy? Because it really depends on, what types of things you'd like to do. There's things that an offset smoker is fantastic for. There's things for a gas grill is great for. If you just want to warm up hot dogs, you know what? Probably that's a good way to warm up, some hot dogs for you. I love the ceramic cookers because of their versatility. And so there's not a use case that I often find it's, not the right tool. I love it for its ability to go hot and fast and sear a steak or cook a pizza. I do mine at 900 degrees, whether that's warranty approved temperatures or not, hold up just fine, to low and slow, and the slow roller just putting out amazing smoke rings. So I like a jack of all trades grill, but completely recognize that there's a lot of other great tools out there that people can use. And I would just say, before you buy the propane grill, check out other options and see if there's one that might be right for you, rather than just doing the default thing and buying, an outdoor gas oven that may not deliver all that performance that you're looking for out of your barbecue.
James, how would you describe the barbecue scene in Canada? Obviously, it's huge in the States, in England, in Britain. It's growing. It's growing quite rapidly at the minute, but it's still nowhere near the US. How would you describe it in Canada at the minute?
Yeah, I think it's growing. And if you look, there's not many barometers and events, particularly this year, to sort of gauge the growth. But if I look even at Dixon's Smoke Show in the last couple of years, just the growth that one show has had, about an hour or so in Toronto from where I am, it's growing tremendously. And so you just look at the amount of people coming out, checking out the show, lining up for food, buying barbecues and getting started. Feels like we're sort of a real grassroots momentum, where, similar, like you said, catching up to the US. Not there yet, but it's definitely taken hold, and people are firing up a passion for it here in Canada as well.
James, thank you for being a brilliant guest on the Lockdown Barbecue Show.
Well, thanks for having us. It's been a lot of fun.
James, and again, thanks for coming on. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to James. Now, Elky, it's great to see that the Canadian barbecue scene's growing.
It is good to see, yeah. They seem to be on a similar growth path to the UK barbecue scene. And to be honest, it's good to see any barbecue scene growing and growing. Now it's time to take a look at my dish of the week. This week's dish of the week is grilled sea bream fillets with a borlotti and nduja stew. So this week is something a little bit different. I'm going to be grilling up these beautiful sea bream fillets from Regal Fish Supplies. Just a bit of salt and oil on those, nothing else. We're going to crisp up the skin. Then we're going to serve it with this lovely borlotti bean stew, which is going to have nduja running through it. Now, nduja is a kind of spreadable salami, spreadable chorizo. It is absolutely delicious. You may have seen me use it on other recipes that I've done. So we're going to use nduja. We've got the borlotti beans, and then to that we're going to have some celery, onion, garlic, peppers, some chopped tomatoes, salt and pepper, and some chicken stock. So it's going to be nice and simple. We're going to do it all on the grill over charcoal, and I'm going to show you how. So we've got our grill fired up. We're using whole oak charcoal here that we've partially lit. We're going to stick our bowl on, because the first thing we want to do is sweat down the veggies and start making the bean stew. Into the pan go the onions, the pepper and the celery, and we're just going to nice and gently sweat these down until they're nice and soft. At this stage we're going to go in with a bit of salt just to help bring the moisture out of those veggies. Once your veggies are nice and soft, I'm going to go in with 3 cloves of garlic that we've crushed, and we're just going to cook that for about another minute, and then we're going to go in with this nduja. Like I said, this is like a spreadable spicy salami, soft chorizo. It's really good. It's got a nice little kick to it, but it's going to be perfect in this dish. If you don't have this, just chuck a bit of chorizo in, sweat the chorizo down with the onions, it'll be fine. So we're just going to go in with about a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half, and a little bit for luck. And again, just going to stir that into the veggies for about a minute or so. And then we go in with a tin of tomatoes. This is going to make more than what we need for 2 fillets. I'm cooking 2 sea bream fillets. This is going to make enough for some leftovers, which is exactly what we're after. I always try and make enough for leftovers when I'm cooking in the evening, because that's going to sort us out for lunch the next day normally. So don't worry if you think you've got too much here. Stick it in your fridge and you've got a nice easy lunch. So you'll notice at the start, when we stuck the whole white charcoal in, it wasn't fully lit, it wasn't raging hot. We had it about half lit, which is exactly what we wanted, because we wanted a nice gentle heat to sweat down the veggies. And now obviously it's burning hotter, there's a lot of air getting to it, which is perfect, because now we want to bring this to the boil. We're going to get the stock in, and we want enough heat to get it all bubbling away. And look how beautiful that stuff is. Look at the glow, never get tired of seeing that. So that's bubbling away. We're going to go in with about 500 ml of stock. And we're going to go in with the beans. Like I said, normally I'd use cannellini beans. I don't have any. Beautiful thing about barbecue is we've swapped fresh tomatoes for tinned tomatoes. We swap cannellini for borlotti. It doesn't matter, just make it your own. So in with the beans, and again, give it a good stir. Touch more salt, some freshly ground cracked black pepper, and that's pretty much it. We're going to let that just simmer away for about 20 minutes now. So the beans are simmering away. We're ready to go ahead and get our fish on. So like I said, we've got these beautiful sea bream fillets from Regal Fish Supplies. Bit of oil, bit of salt. We're going to go skin side down, straight on the hot grates. You hear that sizzle? You'll see how easily we flip those. We've got the nice crispy skin. We're just going to finish them off, flesh side down, just for a minute or so, flip them back over, and then we're going to serve up. So there you go, my dish of the week. Grilled sea bream with a borlotti bean and a nduja stew. I really hope you'll give this a go. I really hope you'll give more seafood a go, because fish on the grill over fire is a match made in heaven. So again, that's my dish of the week. Give it a go, and I'll see you again next week.
Elky, your sea bream dish looked amazing.
Oh, it is absolutely delicious. But my one bit of advice, if anybody's going to try and recreate the dish, is when you get that lovely crispy skin on the fish, don't put that crispy skin side down onto the stew, because you're going to lose the crispiness like I did. But every day is a learning day.
Certainly is. And now it's time for What's Cooking. Some great cooks there. Now, Elky, which was your favourite?
I know I say it again each week, but they are getting better and better. So this week I'm going to go with Grill 'em All Barbecue with those chicken wings. They looked absolutely amazing.
Didn't they? Looked absolutely fantastic. Now, this feature is growing in popularity. And Elky, I think you've got some good news.
I do, yes. So Thermapen, one of our sponsors, have very kindly agreed to give up a Thermapen Pro as a prize every month. So starting in August, we're going to pick our best of what's cooking each week, and then at the end of the month, we're going to pick the overall winner, and that winner will receive Thermapen Pro. So looking forward to doing that. Now, Neal, it's about time we had a look at what you've been cooking.
I've got some good news. My family all agree that it'd be a great idea to build a barbecue shack in the garden. However, I might have to leave a bit of space for chickens. This is where it's going to go. The only downside is that we have to take down this tree and one that has self-seeded in the corner. Realistically, it won't happen until the autumn, so I've got plenty of time for planning. This week, I want to show you a really simple recipe for making tasty lamb koftas, which works so well on the barbecue. All you need is 500 grams of lamb mince. I went for the 20% fat content option, 3 teaspoons of ground coriander, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 2 fat garlic cloves roughly chopped, and 1 tablespoon of chopped mint. Mix all the ingredients until they're well blended, add salt and pepper, then divide equally into 4 balls. Thread each ball onto 2 wooden skewers and mould into oval shapes. The skewers were soaked in water beforehand to help them stop burning on the barbecue, and I'm using 2 for each kofta to stop the mixture from spinning when I turn them on the grill. Set up your barbecue for 2-zone cooking and place the 4 koftas slightly off the direct heat and put the lid on. After a few minutes, turn the koftas and cook for a few more minutes. Use a probe to check the internal temperature. It's safe to eat at around 71 degrees Celsius. Take the koftas off the grill and let them rest for a couple of minutes. We're having them with flatbreads, salad and Greek yogurt. It's a really simple recipe, and the lamb koftas have definitely become a lunchtime family favourite, and they're definitely worth a go. If you're thinking of making them, please send your photos to #LockdownBarbecueShow. We would love to see them.
Elky, I have to say those lamb koftas were absolutely lovely.
They look delicious. I love that style of grilling, nice and simple, but full of flavour. But what I most like about that video is the fact you've announced that you're going to be building a barbecue shack. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that takes shape.
I think it's going to be really good fun, Elky. We're going to have lots of fun planning it over the next few months. Now, Elky, who are our special guests next week?
So next week we have barbecue superstars Sam and Shauna with their restaurant, Hangfire Restaurant. They're also stars of their TV show, Sam and Shauna's Big Cookout.
Now that's going to be really good. Now that's it for today's show. Thank you ever so much for watching. A big thank you to our programme sponsor, Kamado Joe, and we'll see you next week.
And a big thanks from me as well, guys. Keep those fires burning, and we'll see you next week.